Please enjoy the story The 12th Kiss by Tallara. Come home, dear. Wait for me to come home. He used to say that every time he left for work. Every time his lips would hum those words as he leaned forward to kiss her. She did, always did, and still did wait for him even though he no longer asked her to do so. With white lavender perfume rubbed into her tresses, tired eyes of honeysuckles would wait. Metilda whirled away in the kitchen, the hem of her light cotton nightgown flourishing behind her like ocean tides. Her skin was pale and her heart was tired and sad. Little Louis of 5 watched his mother heating the kettle of chamomile tea. It was his father's favorite. Little Louis knew that. His mother always made his father's favorites because his mother loved his father very much. Though he knew his father didn't love his mummy. He didn't kiss her like James's dad would kiss James's mom. He was always angry and shouted at Mummy for no reason, and sometimes Mummy would yell back too. It made Louis very scared. "Louis, why don't you go to bed? I'll tuck you in a minute." Metilda's eyes were busy on the boiling pot of milk. "Wait for Daddy, I want." Louis smiled at his mother, tugging the hem of her skirt. "Wait together." "It's not wait for Daddy I want, it's I want to wait for Daddy together." Metilda had a rule of not answering Louis until he spoke correctly. Half the time, she used this rule to avoid his inquisition, like why Dad didn't come for dinner. Why Dad didn't come to his school. Why didn't Dad do this or that? Why does his mom cry? It gave Metilda a headache. "I want to wait for Daddy together," he repeated. "No, he's going to be late again." In reality, Metilda didn't even know if he was going to return, let alone be late. There is some work left at office. She didn't even know why she was explaining all this to her son. "You know how hard Daddy works for us. Please Mummy, Louis, eat dinner with Daddy. My baby." Moments like these broken her heart. "If you go to sleep, I'll make you." "No." He thrashed his fists in the air. Metilda noted how similar to his father he looked when he was angry. Their wild grass-green eyes glowed red while their cheeks were tinted into the brightest shade of peach. "Louis, eat with Daddy. Louis, eat with Daddy." She sighed. There was no way to end his fit. Once he had begun throwing a tantrum, Louis won't calm down until he's gotten what he desires. "Louis, you're a good boy. Good boys listen to Mummy." "Louis, bad boy. Louis, bad boy. Louis, eat with Daddy." "Mummy lies. Daddy, Mummy fight. Daddy don't love Mummy no more." She lost all self-control. Before even realizing it, she had slapped her boy. A moment later, red fingerprints appeared on his cheek. Tears crept out of her eyes, not Louis who had shushed up now. She sunk onto the cold tiles, the blubbering mess of tears and sobs. "Mummy, don't cry. Mummy, Louis, be good boy now. Mummy, Louis, go to sleep. Don't cry, Mummy. Louis, don't eat with Daddy. Louis, don't wait for Daddy. I go to sleep. I don't make Mummy cry like Daddy. I love my Mummy." Eyes drowned in tears, the heart burdened with sorrow, lungs breaking every moment, she hugged the small boy. Metilda knew in that moment she had made her son see that his daddy did love Mummy. She would do whatever it takes. 3 in the morning. A fumble of keys resounded in the porch. The drunk, once handsome man stumbled into the one-story Houston house. Metilda rushed to her husband's aid. He laid a big, sloppy kiss on her mouth. "May, June, July." John slurred. "May, June, July. I can't never seem to remember their names. There was a long strand of hair on his shoulder. It clearly didn't belong to him, Metilda noted, the bitter taste entering her mouth. Her young self would have been horror-struck. Her younger self wouldn't have let him in. She would have let him rot outside in the porch while she cried inside, right beside the door. The smell of cheap perfume lingered from his coat as she placed it on the worn, maple dining table. John slumped onto the chair, a goofy smile on his lips. May, June, July, and Metilda. The strings in her chest tightened when he said her name. Right then, she knew she couldn't leave him even if she wanted to. Why was she being punished for loving him? She poured him a cup of chamomile tea, but he gripped her hand, stopping her in the process. "Why don't you leave me alone?" "You know why, John? I don't understand. We fight too much. You're making me ill, Metilda. Just leave me alone." He pulled her closer instead of letting go. Their breaths mixed as a snowstorm messed with the wild wind. With his index finger, he traced the outline of her lips. "May, June, July. I can't never seem to remember their names, but I remember Janet and I love her." "I know you do," she whispered, calmly. As calm as a winter storm could be. "She won't ever be mine until you take Louis's custody. She don't want the child. Maybe that's why I don't take his custody." Metilda spoke freely. She knew he wasn't going to remember anything in the morning. "So you evil woman, you pain in my," he cursed. The words bounced off her stone-hard shield. Whatever he said, it didn't make a difference on her anymore. He pushed her away. "I'll get rid of you. I swear I will. Then I'll be free to be with my sweet Janet and I won't ever come home." Metilda stroked his hair. It was as dark as the countryside's night sky. "You'll come back home, dear. Trust me. Love doesn't fall apart so easy." Man and the other woman. Man and the other woman. After completing the article for Wishers magazine, Metilda arrived at her son's school. By profession, Metilda was a journalist. She had a master's in journalism but couldn't fully pursue the career as raising her son took most of her time. So occasionally, she would work as a freelancer and write reports for various publishing agencies. The town's clock struck 1:15 in the afternoon. In her mother's red dress, Metilda talked to her sister on the phone while she waited her son's class to be dismissed. The school's front lawn was crowded with parents. Some chatted with each other, others were busy on their phones, and few stared off in a distance. "Tara," Metilda whispered, quietly. "I've decided. I'm signing the divorce papers." Her sister's frantic voice came from the other side. "Give it some time. I'm sure it'll be fine." Time was the one thing that Metilda wished hadn't slipped. "It's not going to be fine. But you guys were perfect. John, I can't believe he would give up on you easily. You two were the ideals for our marriage. He and I, we gained strength whenever we saw you. How did it fall so quickly?" Metilda closed her eyes, her mind taking her to a place buried in the past. John leaned forward, slowly. "You're my only one." His face was inches away from hers and then he whispered, "I love you and will keep loving you until death does us apart." Metilda felt her mind whirled further ahead as another scene played in front of her eyes. The city lights sparkled. His entire face glowed with happiness. "This is our home. Can't you see it? The sofa will be here, the TV there and the kitchen. Wow! Amazing, isn't it? You've always loved to cook." This will perfect for us." He stopped walking and turned around, placing the hand on Matilda's belly. "And for our little one." Then another scene. "Look what I bought you for Christmas." John slipped a diamond necklace around Matilda's neck. Matilda frowned. "John, you shouldn't have. We need to be saving money." "The bills? Oh, can we forget the bills for one day? It doesn't work like that. We need to plan our expenses." John tossed the necklace on the floor. "I sold my watch to buy you that necklace. Okay. Stop fretting out." Then another. Matilda wanted it to stop but it wouldn't. "Why don't we go out somewhere this weekend? I mean, we barely do these days." John smiled. "Hopefully one day after returning from work. Let's go to the bookla. With the baby and then my journalism assignments, I don't think I have the time." Matilda sighed as she heated up the baby's bottle. "I'll take care of the baby while you finish." "No, John. I'll manage. The last time you gave Louis the wrong medicine and we had to rush to the hospital." "Never mind. Forget I even asked. How did we fall apart so quickly?" Matilda amused. "It wasn't in one day, Tara." Eventually small arguments turned into huge as the distances between us kept widening. Tara stayed silent. "Are you sure there's nothing you can do to save your marriage? He loves her." "Who?" "You know who I'm talking about." Janet, her sister, couldn't conceal the hatred in her voice. "I don't blame her." Matilda sighed. "She only comforted John when I wasn't there for him." The gentle breeze tossed strands of golden hair off her shoulders. Nearby, another parent watched her talk, catching on to few words from her conversation. It was Daniel's father, a widowed man. His wife had died from leukemia 4 years ago, leaving their small but bright girl in his hands. "You're too kind. You wouldn't see her fault even if it hit you in the face, Tara." Matilda's voice was as gentle as a hummingbird hovering over a nectar-filled flower. Daniel's father's eyes were in a daze as he watched Matilda's red dress fluttered with the wind. How beautiful, how pure she was! "What?" snapped Tara. She never understood her older sister's strict morality. "I've told you this before. I hate how always the other woman is labeled as the homewrecker. Janet didn't freak my home. If the walls had been strong enough, John would have resisted her. Have you heard of the saying, too much goodness isn't good?" Matilda laughed. Daniel's father swore that he had an angel sing. Maybe this was a sign, he thought. Maybe it was a sign that he should approach her. Listening to his instinct, he walked over to where she stood and tapped her shoulder. Coincidentally, Matilda ended the phone call at the same time as her sister, who was a nurse practitioner, had some patients to see. This just confirmed Daniel's father's suspicion. Their meeting was meant to be. "Hi there," he smiled, politely. "Louis' mother, aren't you?" Matilda returned his smile. "Yes, I am. Sorry but I didn't recognize you." "Reed Smith, Daniel's father. My daughter often talks about Louis." "Well, that's nice." She smiled, silently wishing that she knew something about Daniel. Louis barely talked about any of his friends. He would occasionally talk about James and his parents, who were deeply in love and needed no excuse to kiss each other. "I heard you're filing a divorce against your husband." Matilda rose an eyebrow. "And that is your business, how?" Reed held up his hands. "I'm lawyer, that's why I was asking." Both Matilda and Reed knew that was a clear lie. She narrowed her eyes at him. "Were you eavesdropping on my conversation?" "Well, the poor man can't help what he hears." "Kindly refrain from hearing the next time around. So there will be a next time. Maybe in coffee shop, south down Buckland Lane. What do you say, beautiful? Her eyes widened, as she paled significantly. Are you? She shook her head. Just because I'm getting divorced doesn't give you the right to pursue me. The lawyer tucked his hands into the pockets of his trousers. Why not? Your husband won't care. He isn't blind, is he? Only a fool would leave someone as beautiful as yourself. Matilda's skin became hot and prickly. She had always been bad at things such as flirting and persistent men. In her college days, she was often stereotyped for a bookworm. No doubt, she was a shy book lover. It always amazed her how John had broken her walls. He was the life of the college, loud and friendly. Majoring in criminology at the time, he was something different. There was a natural charisma he had, the kind that would make anyone turn around and look at him twice. They had English together. He would always contribute to the class discussion even though half the time it was utter nonsense, while Matilda, even though she had numerous, brilliant ideas sprouting inside her head, stayed silent. Matilda remembers how he had asked for her help on an essay and how thankful he had been afterwards. John wasn't the kind who would forget a favor. He helped her back and tried boasting her courage to speak up in class. They started out as acquaintances and slowly, without even realizing it, they had become so much more. So what do you say? It's a date. Reed broke the trance Matilda had been in. She was about to respond and burn some sense into Reed when she felt an arm twist around her waist. The bright afternoon sun sharpened the contours of John's face as he glared at the lawyer. Stay away from her. Am I clear? Or do I have to make myself? Reed Smith, the lawyer and Daniel's father, glared back. Who are you, sir? And more importantly, why should I listen to you? John, in his tight, grey waistcoat and long overcoat, patted his trousers. Even as a detective for the local police, John rarely ever threatened the victims. Today, he made an exception. The silver revolver case fastened to his belt sparkled in the sunlight. Reed gulped and backed away. As soon as Reed was a safe distance away, John removed his arm from Matilda's waist. To her great disappointment, Matilda longed for his arm to stay there. Even for a few seconds, she had felt safe and sound. You didn't have to threaten him. I could have handled him by myself. Matilda stood stiffly by his side while John's sharp eyes scanned the school's playground. Yacht, right? John scoffed, running a hand through his night-dark hair. Handle it. You've been hopeless with men. She knew it was true, but it did hurt her pride. Maybe I've gotten better. How do you know? We rarely talk. John's eyes lingered to meet her gaze. He lifted his hand and ran it across her cheek. Matilda was tempted to close her eyes. Your skin is warm, warmer than usual. It usually becomes hotter when you're tensed or nervous. If you had gotten better then you wouldn't be tensed. Would you? He retracted his hand, almost as though she were poison. It's best if I learn. She looked in another direction. You won't be there tomorrow and I won't have a reason to keep them away. We haven't gotten divorced yet? Not yet, she whispered. You're so determined. I won't be surprised if that day comes soon. He didn't reply and she wished she could read his mind. What are you doing here? She asked him. He never came to pick Louis. An investigation is going on the school's principal. We're trying to keep it undercover until anything is proven. I should get going. John briefly looked at Reed, then back at Matilda. "Call me if there's trouble. Can you come home early? I need to discuss something important." "I'm going out for dinner with Janet," John bluntly replied. Matilda tried very hard to not let his words hurt her. "It's pretty important." She shrugged. "The choice is yours." "Fine." Without another word, he left her. Once again alone. Little did he know, fate was going to make him scream with regret for every second he spent without her. Humans are strange. If they only knew how to value the present. Louis of 5 years hugged his mother as soon as school was dismissed. Few feet away from them was James and his parents, who were laughing like a happy little family should. "How was school?" Matilda smiled at her little boy. "Fantastico." He swung their linked arms back and forth, then he stopped and stared at James's family. "Where's Daddy?" Matilda's eyes automatically followed her son's stare. "He's here." Louis' ears perked. "Daddy?" "Well, he's inside. He would visit us if he could." Instantly, Louis's face sobered into sad expression. "It okay, Mommy. Louis understand it. Daddy work. Daddy busy all time. It okay?" Matilda could almost grasp the longing in her son's eyes as she watched him stare at James and his happy family. James's father quickly kissed James's mother while James beamed at his parents. In that moment, Matilda knew what she had to do. She stroked her son's head as the plan began to form in her mind. In love again. 7 in the evening, John stood at the doorstep of their cozy, one-story house. Spring was about to arrive. John noted that he had few weeds to pluck from the front yard. The sunflower buds were almost ready to bloom. Matilda loved sunflowers, John reminisced. He had sown an entire patch in front of their house just for her. He rapped his knuckles against the door. The sound echoed through the small house. Matilda opened the door a minute later, her skin flushed red, her brown hair in wispy curls. "You came?" The statement sounded more like a question from her lips as she sidestepped to let him in. He hung his coat on the rack and shrugged his shoulders. "You told me to come. So here I am." She shook her head slightly. "I didn't expect you to come." He turned around and stared at her. "Why is it such a surprise?" Matilda purposely didn't answer his question. "What about your dinner with Janet?" "I cancelled it." "Why?" John rose an eyebrow, incredulous. "You said you had to talk about something important." So of course, she felt stupid for asking him that. She had been in such a daze from his arrival, she had no clue what she was saying. "I'm ready to take Louis's custody." Relief filled John's face. "That's great news. God, Janet will be so relieved." Swallowing the bitter taste in her mouth, she smiled. "But..." The smile dropped instantly as he interjected. "There's always a but." "What do you want?" "Money. This house." Tears swelled in her eyes. Is this what he thought of her? She blinked a couple times. The shield of strength and cold ice was back in place. "No, I don't want any of it. Keep your house. I'm capable of buying another for my son and I." "What else do you want, Matilda?" he asked her, puzzled. She took a deep breath in. "I want you to kiss me in front of our son for 12 days. John didn't ask her why. He was afraid she would change her mind if he did. After 3 months of pleading, she had finally given him 12 kisses. If that was all it took to get rid of her, then so it be. He stepped forward, size of green forest and honey met halfway. Before Metilda had chance to stop him, he lowered his face and captured her soft lips. It had been a while since he had last kissed her, a while too long. Metilda felt her heart race, faster and faster as he gently cut her cheek. "No, no, no," she chanted inside her head. "Not now, not when their son was sleeping upstairs." She did what she had to and pushed him away. "Were you listening to what I was saying? In front of our son?" John brushed off her comment with a bored expression. "The faster we get this done the better. 1 down. 11 to go." He started walking towards his room, leaving Metilda angry and frazzled. How she wished that kiss hadn't dazed her. Before entering his room, he turned around one last time. "If you think in these 12 days, I'm going to fall in love with you again, then you're heavily mistaken." Was John always this cruel? Metilda thought, because she no longer recognized her husband. "Sugar." "Yes, please." John was sitting at his desk when Janet walked into the cabin. In her tight police uniform and a revolver around her waist, she looked like an angel ready to kill. "Any updates on the elementary school case?" she asked, tossing a red file on the table. John sighed and shook his head. "Darn," she pressed her palms on the table. "We need to get some leads on that principal before things get out of control. I won't let that happen." He placed his hand on top hers and smiled. "So officer, how was your day?" "Tiring. Just came back from the East Bay Patrol." "Yours?" "I have good news for you," he grinned. She rose an eyebrow. "Really now?" Metilda agreed to take the custody. Relief flooded Janet's striking features. She ran over to the other side of the table and hugged John. He wrapped his arms around Janet's waist. They pulled away a minute later. A strange look glazed John's eyes. For a second too short, he felt unsure if they were doing the right thing. Why was he feeling this way? Janet clasped her hands together. "That's great news. You know, John, I'm not mother material. I know nothing of their crime and theses guns. It's relief that your son won't have to suffer with a horrible stepmother. You're not horrible. Plus it's for the best if Louis stays with Metilda. I don't think they belong in our world." Janet gave John's shoulder a gentle squeeze. "You've got me. I've got you. That's all that matters for now. Let's not talk about them." "Yacht?" John stared at the computer screen blinking before him. "Let's not talk about them, John," Janet spoke after a moment. Deep down she knew no matter how hard she tried, John's heart would never belong to her. "You're over Metilda, right?" John met her scared stare. "Of course I am." He stood up, straightening his long, grey coat. Janet was about to lean down and kiss him, but he quickly uttered the first thing that came to his mind. "I've got to go. I'll do some more investigation on the case." "Okay, be careful." John didn't know why he hadn't told Janet about the 12-kiss deal. John didn't know why he was lying to Janet. Once he was outside the police department building, he took a deep breath to calm his agitated nerves. "What the heck is wrong with me? I'm hurting, baby. I'm broken down. I need your loving." Matilda sang along the radio, her hips swaying with the beat as she whisked the cold butter. She was so engrossed in making the pancake batter and jamming out to Maroon 5 that she didn't notice the opening and closing of the front door. "Sugar." "Yes, please. Won't you come and put it down on me? I'm right here, 'cause I need little love and little sympathy." Noticing the commotion coming from the kitchen, John walked into the dining area. To his great surprise, he found his wife, dancing and whirling around. Dressed in a floral chiffon top and caprice, her curves flowed under the nearly transparent top. Was it the heat? Or was this room getting hotter? John loosened his tie. God, when did his wife become so damn hot? Had she started working out or something? He removed his coat. A droplet of sweat trickled past his brow. This was going to be a lot harder. Especially when his wife was so irresistible. The soles of his shoes clicked on the tiled floors. Metilda turned around suddenly, her breaths caught in throat. Her honey-spilling eyes widened. The hungry look in John's eyes. Damn! He slipped his hand around her waist. Metilda's arms tightened around the bowl, holding it between them. "What are you doing?" she spoke sharply. John blinked, once, twice. "What?" His breath smelled like tea and peppermint. "What are you doing?" she repeated, removing herself from his grasp. There was some batter on your face." John brushed a finger along her jaw. "I've been cooking for 10 years. John backed away, holding up his hands. "I was just doing what the deal required me to do. Not now, later. In front of our son. Don't make me repeat that." He nodded. He couldn't wait to kiss those ruby lips. When John realized what he had just thought, he shook his head violently, his pulse rising. What the hell did he just think? "I'll come home early." John quickly went to living room and grabbed his coat from the rack. "Wait, what?" Metilda came after him. He wished she hadn't. His body was reacting in ways he thought he had forgotten. Oh, those curves, those eyes, those lips. He couldn't stop staring at them. "I got to go." "But you just got here." "We have to go pick Louis from school." John wanted to get out of here as fast as he could. "I'll be there for dinner." He slammed the door in her face, leaving Metilda stunned and frazzled. "Did I do something wrong?" One more night. As promised, John arrived in time for dinner. He parked his 1998 Mercedes-Benz behind Metilda's red Camry. Louis was playing with a neighbor's 6-year-old girl, Bo. The kids were drawing chalk daisies on the sidewalk. Bo shook head, her ink black hair falling out of the bow. "No, number loobies. Flowers are not green." Louis glared at her. "Flowers be green." Mrs. Mole said flowers are not green. Bo crossed her arms over her chest. Louis stomped his feet. "Louis want green flowers. I'm not playing. Goodbye." Bo flipped her hair and started walking away, her sandals flopping on the sidewalk. "No!" Louis ran after her. The chalk fell from his hand. "Wait, don't go, Bo." John laughed to himself as watched his son chase after the neighbor's daughter. The woman is always right. He thought he'd better learn that lesson. He opened the door of the house to find Metilda sitting by the dining table, a thick pad of paper by her elbow and a pen stuck behind her ear as she typed out an article on her laptop. Even in her messy, dismantled state, she looked gorgeous. She met his gaze, startled. She seemed to be surprised a lot these days. Was he really that bad at keeping promises? "Sorry, I haven't started on dinner yet. My back had been killing me. I'll start on it now." "No, chill." John placed his coat on the rack. His wild green eyes took hers in. She breathed out a shaky breath as he walked to her side. Gently, he pushed her back in the chair. He smelled of worn leather and valentine. It was Matilda's favorite scent. She wondered when he had started wearing it again. "You okay now? Do you need to go to the doctor?" "Yeah, I'm okay." Matilda felt her shoulder brush against his waist. "I already went." "What did the doc say?" She shrugged her shoulders. "Nothing much. He prescribed me some pain meds." "You rest. I'll cook dinner." John rolled up the sleeves of his grey shirt. He took a knife from the dish stand and started chopping the onions. "Would you like onion soup?" "That's the only vegan dish I know how to cook." He flashed her a dazzling smile. Matilda had an urge to fan herself as her cheeks got flushed red. He remembered. "Are you still a vegan?" His grin dimmed slightly. She nodded, not finding the voice to speak. Quickly, she averted eyes to the laptop screen. Her vision had become blurry. "Why John? After all this time, why now?" In Matilda's checkered apron, John served a very hyper Louis and solemn Matilda dinner. He stood by Louis's chair and poured him a ladleful of onion soup. "Yummy food, Daddy." Louis bounced in his chair, nearly spilling the glass of orange juice. "It's really nice, John." Matilda gave him a half-hearted smile. "Thank you." "Oh, come on." He smiled broadly. "Stop being so formal." He came to Matilda and served her some bread. "Eat up, love. You've gotten so thin." And then, he quickly planted a soft kiss on her lips. It was enough to make her toes curl. "10 more to go," she whispered to him. Ice glazed John's eyes. Louis grinned at his mother and then at his father. "Daddy, you come for dinner every day?" Matilda's heart fell. "No, Louis. It is Daddy. Will you come for dinner every day?" She corrected him, trying to buy John some time to answer. Louis turned his hopeful gaze at John. Big, green eyes watched him. "Daddy, will you come for dinner every day?" John ruffled his son's hair. "If that's what you want." "Yes." Louis shot up in his chair and jumped merrily around the dining table. "Yes. Yes." Matilda gave John a disgusted look. "Don't make promises you can't keep." "I intend to keep this one." He picked up Louis's dishes. "Whether you like it or not." While John tucked Louis to bed, Matilda scrubbed the dishes. Angrily, muttering to herself, she poured a handful of dish soap onto the sponge. "Who does he think he is?" She squeezed the froth onto the greasy plate. Bubbles danced around her red-tinted face. "That bastard." She stopped midway as she felt a hand snake around on her wrist. "I'll do the dishes." John wrapped his arm around her and stole the sponge from her hand. Matilda felt her pulse rise up. He was so close, his front side pressed against her back. She turned around. Wrong move. Her face was inches from his chest. The front side of his shirt was stained with dish soap from her hands. John lowered his neck to her hair. Matilda's eyes widened. He breathed in her scent. "Did you always smell this good?" She paled significantly. "Oh, dear Lord. What was happening? Tell me." John's wet hands trailed along her waist. The sponge slipped out of John's hands. He pushed Matilda against him. Their bodies were flush, her chest pressed against his. "You're driving me insane, Mel." He planted soft kisses on her bare shoulder. She drew in a sharp piece of air. The lines between lust and love beginning to blur. And then he passionately kissed her. Matilda's back was pressed against the sink. Her heart gave a painful thump inside her chest. A blissful soared inside her as his fingers slid beneath her chiffon top. "Not here," she gasped. His strong arms swept her off her feet. He carried her to his room, refusing to let their lips part. A ring around the finger. A ring around the finger. John placed Matilda on the bed. He pushed her against the headboard, their hands roaming in places which hadn't been explored in a while. He moaned softly in her hair, and as if coming to her senses, Matilda jerked away from him. She wrapped the blanket around her body. "Must be nice to have two women at your service." John looked at her incredulously, feeling as though she had slapped him. He ran a hand across his face, the haze in his mind deepening. He couldn't get himself to think straight. "What the hell are you talking about?" He got up from the bed. The street lights from the window danced off his bare chest. "Forget it." She turned around, but he caught her by the wrist and pushed her against the wall. "I can't do that," he whispered. When she didn't reply, he added the next part. "No, I haven't slept with Janet. If that is what you're asking me. You know, John, I know all your weakness. You want me now because I'm letting you go. I'm curious. Why all of a sudden you're ready to take Louis's custody?" Matilda smirked. It chilled John to the core. There was a dead light in her eyes, the lack of life. "You don't love me anymore, do you?" "No," he replied in a firm voice. "I never stopped loving you," he thought. "You won't forgive me, will you?" He averted his eyes. "You should go." She spared him one look before walking away, the little dignity she had left. John collapsed onto the bed. His head in his hands, he groaned. "You're a bloody idiot, John." John printed out the background verification papers of the elementary school's principal, Warren Thompson. Tired green eyes scanned the page. He hadn't slept a wink in last 40 hours. Since he couldn't sleep, he thought he might as well come to work. That's the best part of working for the police, they don't put any time restrictions on you. As Sergeant Sheffield said, it's about the quality, son, not the quantity. John weighted the 30-page stack in his hands. The ADI Service Department had really outdone themselves this time. He scanned the narrow print. Nothing important came into view. Then his gaze stopped at a certain block of information. Prevo 2000. Developed 2000 to 2005. PR 2011 to 2013. PRR 2013 to 2014. No traceable location. John leaned back in the leather chair. Not much of proof, but what the heck was he doing then? This was probably one of the most confusing cases John had ever dealt with in his career of 6 years. The entire case was built on one small detail. On 23 February, 3 in the morning, an extremist group's call was received on Warren Thompson's cell phone. The content of the call, unknown. After that, the police has been keeping track of his IP address. Not much.